guys, we are going to do a read aloud of the Great Capoke Tree, or Capoke, say it however you want. It is actually Tale of the Amazon Rainforest. This one is a really good story talking about how there are outside impacts or outside issues that affect environments, as well as what we can do to help. So as we read, I want you to be thinking about the issues as well as what do you see in the text. I've put together some just because obviously this is not interactive, but I want you to be thinking about them as we go through. Two men walked into the rainforest. Moments before, the forest had been alive with the sounds of squawking birds and howling monkeys. Now all was quiet as the creatures watched the two men and wondered why they had come. The larger man stopped and pointed to a great capoke tree. Then he left. So you can see size-wise, he is much smaller. I also noticed there's a lot of different animals that live in this environment. The smaller man took an axe he had carried and struck the trunk of a tree. Whack, whack, whack. The sounds of the blows rang through the forest. The wood of the tree was very hard. Chop, chop, chop. The man wiped off his sweat that ran down his face and his neck. Whack, chop, whack, chop. Soon the man grew tired. He sat down to rest at the foot of the great capoke tree. Before he knew it, the heat and the hum of the forest had lulled him to sleep. So you can see here, he didn't get very far. You can also see how many of these creatures are being affected. A boa constrictor lived in the capoke tree. He slithered down its trunk to where the man was sleeping. He looked at the gash the axe had made in the tree, and then the huge snake slid very close to the man and hissed in his ear. Senor, this tree is a tree of miracles. It is my home, where generations of my ancestors have lived. Do not chop it down. So if it's his home, then it's his shelter and it's the home of others. So it sounds like that deforestation is really causing an issue with the animals. A bee buzzed in the sleeping man's ear. Senor, my hive is in the capoke tree, and I fly from tree to tree and flower to flower collecting pollen. In this way, I pollinate the trees and the flowers throughout the rainforest. You see, all living things depend on one another. So the bee is telling him, if you cut down this tree, you cut down our area, then I'm not able to help all of the other trees and plants. A troop of monkeys scampered down from the canopy of the capoke tree. They chattered to the sleeping man. Senor, we have seen the ways of man. You chop down one tree, then you'll come back for another and another. The roots of these great trees will wither and die, and there will be nothing left to hold the earth in place. When the heavy rains come, the soil will be washed away, and the forest will be nothing but desert. So I liked what they said there. You know, you're talking about greed at that point. You're not just coming back for one, you're gonna constantly come back, and that's when you have the deforestation of all these trees. A toucan, a macaw, and a cock of the rock flew down from the canopy. Senor, squawked the toucan, you must not cut down this tree. We have flown over the rainforest and seen what happens when you begin to chop the trees. Many people settle on the land. They set fires to clear the underbrush, and soon the forest disappears. Where once there was life and beauty, only black and smoldering ruins remain. So they're saying, look at all the beautiful greenery and animals. It's so beautiful. If you chop down all these trees, then it will no longer be beautiful. A bright and small tree frog crawled along the edge of the leaf. In a squawky voice, he piped in the man's ear, Senor, a ruined rainforest ruins many lives. You will leave many of us homeless if you chop down this great capoke tree. A jaguar had been sleeping along a branch in the middle of the tree. Because he had his spotted coat blended into the dappled light and shadows of the understory, no one had noticed him. Now he leapt down and padded silently over to the sleeping man. He growled in his ear. Senor, the kapoki tree is a home to many birds and animals. If you cut it down, where will I find my dinner? So this is going to be the food chain. If you lose some of those creatures, then the creatures that eat those are then going hungry. So you're impacting many creatures. 4 tree porcupines swung down from branch to branch and whispered to the man, Senor, do you know what we animals and humans need in order to live? Oxygen. And Senor, do you know what the tree produces? Oxygen. If you cut down the trees, you will destroy that which gives us all life. Really good resource. If our trees are being cut down, they can't give us oxygen to breathe. Several anteaters climbed down the kapok tree with their young clinging to their backs. The unstriped anteater said to the sleeping man, Senor, you are chopping down this tree with no thought for the future. And surely you know that what happens tomorrow depends on what you do today. The big man tells you to chop down a beautiful tree. He does not think of his own children, who tomorrow must live in a world without trees. So he's making a good point. If you're going to chop down a tree, you're going to need to plant a tree because you have to think of the future and what they're going to need to survive. A 3-toed sloth had begun climbing down from the canopy when the men first appeared. I can't. She's crazy. Only now did she reach the ground, plodding ever so slowly over to the sleeping man. She spoke in her deep and lazy voice. Senor, how much is beauty worth? Can you live without it? If you destroy the beauty of the rainforest, on what would you feast your eyes? A child from the local tribe who lived in the rainforest knelt over the sleeping man. He murmured in his ear, Senor, when you awake, please look upon us all with new eyes. So knowledge is power. He knows now what to do. The man awoke with a start. Before him stood the rainforest child, and all around him, staring, were the creatures who depend upon the great kapoki tree. What wondrous and rare animals they were. The man looked about and saw the sun streaming through the canopy. Spots of bright light glowed like jewels amidst the dark green forest. Strange and beautiful plants seemed to dangle in the air, suspended from the great kapok tree. The man smelled the fragrant perfume of the flowers. He felt the steamy mist rising from the forest floor, but he heard no sound, for the creatures were strangely silent. The man stood and picked up his axe. He swung back his arm as though to strike the tree, but suddenly he stopped. He turned and he looked at the animals and the child. And then he hesitated. Then he dropped his axe and he walked out of the rainforest. All right, friend. So now that we have heard of what the issue is, which we know is we need to protect our environments or the rainforest, and obviously it's deforestation where they're taking away the trees, but they're not planting them again. In the text, it did tell us a few of those issues and what they actually caused in the rainforest or in the Amazon. And some of those were that cutting down the trees would lower our oxygen. It would cause many animals to die because they no longer have their home or their shelter. That if we cut down one tree, that they'll probably cut down more trees, and then you have that greed and that larger issue. That it would make things less beautiful when you don't have those trees, which means that you don't have the flowers and the animals, and that the men were not thinking of the future and what the future children would need and future people. So I want you to be thinking about what are some ways that we can help? What are some things that we can do to help this issue and help the deforestation and protect our environments? Because as you can see, many of the issues that were caused in this awesome story were caused by humans. All right. Message me on Edsby if you have any things that you think we can do to help. Also creating some sort of picture or poster. I always love that. So, love you guys.